Okay, welcome everybody to the last day of Design Modelling Symposium Paris. This morning we've got the Data Shaping Cities session. So yesterday we had a wonderful deep dive introduction into matters data, and today we look a little bit more specifically at data in relation to the city. So data, I would say, has been shaping cities at least since the Enlightenment. Barcelona's extension, the Ildefons-Cerda's extension grid to the emergent medieval city of Barcelona is a great example where data of all sorts drove this plan. From transport, water. He was an engineer and he had all those preoccupations, but also green space, quality of life, the creation of these little spaces between the grid that become commercial centres. Haussmann had a different approach in Paris. He just, also in the 1850s, just overlaid the plan right over the emergent plan of Paris, and I guess we all believe what we're told, that this was driven by the data about cavalry and being able to move the cavalry through the city, but also some other sort of grand data-driven schemes there. This is where I'm coming from, the Hoddle grid in Melbourne, a little bit earlier, 1837, rather modest by comparison, but again very wide streets, driven in this case by the width needed to turn a bullock cart. So we got quite a sort of grand grid size divided by these little laneways in between. So the way we occupy cities now is really preoccupying us. We heard yesterday from Thomas and from Usman about a very ideological, democratic ideas around data and how we might collect and use it collectively. And co-working has been one of those great ideas where we get much better space usage, we get affordable space, and we get the kind of meeting opportunities between different operations in co-working. And we know that's become, talking last night about the way that's as always has been appropriated by capitalism very successfully, with companies like WeWork growing from startup to 20 billion over a very short period. We're sort of very familiar with the way that commerce in general uses our data. Even product placement on the supermarket shelves is driven very much by counting what we look at and what we do as we go to the supermarket. Amazon, likewise, keeping us out of the rabbit hole, as Caitlin explained, by watching us all and using the big data to guide us as to what to buy. Even my own university, we do use big data in a big way to really target our markets, work out which schools our students are likely to come from and which areas, and target the marketing there. We know a surprising amount about demographics. I'm not quite sure in this case. This was homeless people in Tasmania. You can see that we have a frightening number of children in the blue and red there who are homeless, through to peaks in the 25 to 34-year-olds, and then quite a few older than that as well. I saw today as I was coming here, well last night actually, a lot of people sleeping outside the Department of Immigration, so I guess you have the same issues here. But is this the data that's actually shaping the city? I think, back to the view from my house, I think the data that's really shaping the city is the real estate data, and the reason I think that is because our biggest real estate site domain is wholly owned by Fairfax Media, and this is actually the money-making part of the business now. They own a lot of the newspapers in Australia and New Zealand, but they are actually propped up by the amount of transactional activity that's happening on this property site. In Australia, 42% of us move on average every period of 5 years. And if you're renting, that goes up to 84%. And a larger and larger proportion of the population is actually renting as ownership goes into fewer and fewer hands. This This is a project which I won't talk about in detail, but it was a project that we thought might be very useful for advocacy. It was with Flora Salim a few years ago. And it's a mobile model of the city with a wind flow projected onto it. And it's the real-time data from the wind. As you pick up these blocks and move them around, the wind flow updates in real time. And we thought this would be a really great advocacy tool if you could take it into early meetings for major projects. You could get the microclimate sort of on the table as well as the money. So we're still sort of looking around for funding and partners to do that with. We were doing it with business people, anthropologists. I think everybody probably saw this image from Arc Daily recently of the 10 square metre unit, which is now very typical in our city as well, as we're sort of dominated by student housing. We sell a lot of education. So I'll now hand over to the people that are a little bit more expert in this question of data shaping cities. So in the next session, we have first of all Eric Saudi, and Eric is from University of North Carolina, where he runs the digital, am I right, the Digital Cities Institute. And, sorry, note to self. And then René is speaking next, René Poussep, who's architect and property technology entrepreneur, University of East London. He runs the interdisciplinary company Slider Studio and works as a part-time researcher at the Estonian Academy of Arts. Areti, if she needs any introduction, many people here will know Areti, Greek architect, educator and urban technologist, director of IAC, a leading international architecture program in Barcelona, and co-editor of Urban Next, a global network focused on rethinking architecture. And finally, in the session, Michael Paul James, who's an entertainment technology designer at iDialogue, also from University of North Carolina. And then we will have a coffee break, and we will come back, and I'll introduce Antoine Picon and Carlo Ratti for the closing keynotes of the conference. Thank you very much. Eric, would you like to